Look at this guy. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, let me plug my earphones in. Anyways, well, how you doing? What are you doing right now? You just getting back from your 7th job?
But
That's
yeah,
crazy.
I just got back from the dojo. Finished kickboxing and adult karate and kids karate and junior karate today, teen karate today, and then cleaning up the mats and getting ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow's the big day. Tuesday and Thursday is big days.
Is that why you look like the life has been drawn out of you or beaten out of you mercilessly, Steve? Is that the look you usually have on? Is it the lighting? It's just the lighting. It's just the lighting issue.
It's the stupid light in here. Yeah, no, man. It's busy. Life's busy. If you like being busy,
I don't though. That's the thing. I'm not a guy that I can't keep pace. Like I feel like I'm the kind of guy that like. I see, because I have such bad OCD that like the thought of having things to do that have to get done because I'm such a neurotic idiot about,
right.
I have this quote unquote sense of like perfection in my brain that is unachievable. But the thought of having too much stuff to do gets me so overwhelmed. So I admire people like you. I don't know how the hell you do it.
I think I don't like that feeling. I'm just used to it.
Right.
So
okay.
I think there's a comfort in familiarity.
Right.
So like when you don't have a lot of things going on, then it creates anxiety in me.
Because you're not used to it.
No.
Yeah. Well, let me kick this off here, okay?
Okay.
Before we get too deep into any rabbit holes, Steve, we've only got 4 hours, so we want to make the most of it. All right,
4.
Guys, hot off the heels of my interview with Lachlan Giles, we got another world class. No, he didn't go to ADCC, but that was political. I think he earned the right. But he said something to Mo, and Mo just kicked him out. Anyways, no. Lifelong martial artist, I would say a very highly decorated one at that. I'm going to butcher these names. You just told me how to pronounce them, but I have the memory of a squirrel. Okinawa Shorin-ryu Karate under the Shorinkan Association?
Yes, sir.
How bad was that on a scale of 1 to 10?
That was pretty good.
That was a solid 6?
I'll give you a 9. Oh,
jeez. All right. Okay. I like
good.
it. That's like 3. That's like 3 stripes on my belt.
It's easy.
6th degree karate, black belt in karate.
Yep.
2nd degree black belt in Okinawa weapons.
Right.
And it's under the what? Sorry, say that. What's the other?
So it would be the Weapons Association is the Okinawan Kobudo Kokusai Rengyokai.
That. All the women just perked up when they heard you say that. You sounded so exotic right there. They just picture a guy that looks like Fabio wearing a black belt right now.
It's not even close.
Dude, just run with it. Just don't ask questions.
Yeah,
the female listeners are on board. 1st degree black belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu. Yeah. And perhaps most importantly, a white belt in BJJ. However, I think that's I think that's a little bullshit because you do have competition experience and you've won. I mean, 1st place at Grappling Industries,
right?
2017.
Yep.
2nd place at the Bellum Classic, 2019.
Right.
2nd place at the Ascension BJJ tourney in 2019. Right. So I was just talking with my friend Matt Rocca, who's a brown belt for like 30 years. You guys might have, Ethan Krellinston and Matt Rocca need to settle this as to who is the biggest sandbagger in Canada.
It's not me. It's probably Ethan for sure.
It's Ethan for sure.
Close second.
This podcast has a beef with Ethan Krellinston, and we
long documented.
Well documented. I mean, if you go back and look at the transcripts, it's in there. It's well documented. You're also the owner of Ferraro Karate and Martial Arts in downtown Guelph. Is it downtown? Right. I just thought that sounded better.
It's downtown. No,
right
it's
in the heart of the city. He's not on the outskirts, people. This guy's right in the heart. I would say maybe, is it fair to say that you're the modern day Steven Seagal?
I'd love to be. I watched those movies endlessly as a kid. Like, he's a horrible person in general.
That's what I've heard. I don't know who I was just listening to an interview with.
Oh yeah, it's mad cocaine issues and rage and womenizing and whatever, but like the movies were dope.
Yeah, that's all that matters. As long as the movies were good. It's okay that he's a pedophile and a womanizer. As long as the movies, yeah. I'm not
giving him a pass on any of that.
I think you did. I think you just kind of gave him a pass.
Because he's got great wrist locks, but like, come on.
Oh, so that's another strike against him right there. The BJJ community just tuned the fuck out on that, Steve Ferraro.
That's why all of a sudden that's why I'm still a white belt, because I'm still embracing the wrist lock.
No, I feel like you should not be a white belt anymore. That's my personal opinion. But
well, thanks, man.
First of all, Steve, I mean, we were kind of just talking a little bit. I mean, this has been a fucked up year. All right, you're a guy that works his ass off. You've got all these jobs. What has this COVID situation been like for you? I like to have you guys on. The only other gym owner really that I've had on was sort of Kent Peters. And it's just, I think it's really important to give you guys a voice, because I don't think, it seems like a lot of my friends that don't have small businesses, they all think that they're listening to the news and it's like, oh, they've all been kind of taken care of.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just wonder, from your perspective, if you could just elaborate on what this whole road has been like for you. Because this is what, your 5th year in business for the gym?
Yeah, 5th or 6th.
Okay.
We started January 2014,
okay.
So like we're coming into a little bit longer there on 6 coming into 7. It's been terrible for everybody, and I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said that everybody has this idea that small businesses are being taken care of, because we all logged into the talking heads, since March 13th, Friday the 13th. And watched everything just kind of unravel and fall down on top of everybody. So I think the first misconception is that everybody all of a sudden got like a payout, or, and in general, let's be honest, like businesses, when you're desperate, are going to look for any kind of capital that they can get, but giving them a loan that is a reduced interest rate, or maybe some forgiveness, like thanks for allowing us to go in debt because you forced foreclosure.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of, panicked at first because we didn't know what we were dealing with, and everybody rightfully so did the right thing and shut down. And I'm kind of proud of our province for implementing, a strategy, and then for people for following suit. However, it's not been easy. Even the relief that they've offered for people, it's just like Kent, right? Like I was just too much or too little.
Yeah, it's this little like gray area that you have to kind of fall in. And even that, I think we've had mutual friends that it sounds like you basically have to be declaring bankruptcy,
right,
to get any quote unquote relief, which kind of defeats the purpose, isn't it?
And if you're already at that point where you're close to declaring bankruptcy after having a little bit of time off, then it's like you're probably stretched out. And so then if you're stretched out, what's getting more debt going to help you with, other than prolong the inevitable?
Yeah.
So a lot of people had to make some big sacrifices and get creative really, really fast. But the COVID situation has been rough. As a gym owner, it's been rough. As a dad, it's been rough. As a school teacher during the day, it's been rough. Like every avenue of my existence since that 13th of March has been rough, and everyone's kind of, like I always say, or lately I've said, it's like we're just juggling chainsaws and they're on fire, and I'm on fire, and everything's on fire. So it's just
which ironically enough was the last thing you had to go through to earn your black belt in karate, was juggling fire blazing chainsaws, which is why Steve only has one arm right now, guys, for people listening at home. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, the karate misconceptions are fun too, but like the juggling chainsaws, that's new. I haven't heard it, but at the same time, honestly, COVID has not been favorable, and it's been frustrating as a gym owner to watch other people who I know and respect in the industry have issue. Like even people that I follow on social media that who lost a gym, like Kayotera lost his gym.
Yep.
And Gary Tonin, he had a situation come up with his gym in New Jersey, and now all of a sudden they're kind of left high and dry. Right. So you're looking at guys who you follow and are like, oh wow, look at how successful they are in this industry, and yet based on their situation where they are geographically, things are kind of even imploding on them. So just being able to say, like, if you're still running right now and running classes right now and you're in the game, like, all the power to you. You've got my respect, because that you've made some sacrifices and you've come out on top.
Well, I just wanted to kind of get kind of a sense of, where you're coming from with all this, because I just know you as this like insanely hardworking guy, and my heart goes out to see you guys. Like, one of the things that I was really impressed with, going through all this nonsense with COVID is just to me, you kind of emerged as sort of like a bit of a leader in my eyes. Like, I feel like you started to connect with other gyms, but you just stayed so dedicated to your students. And I remember seeing you teaching Zoom classes constantly. And I mean, just talk to me a bit more about that experience. Like, you reflect on opening this gym and all the hard work you've put into it. Talk to me a bit about that experience of just trying to keep it going through this crazy situation with things like Zoom classes and how that's been.
Ironically, the week before COVID popped off, it was going to be March break.
Okay.
And I was talking with my wife and we were having a lot of heart to hearts, and like things weren't going particularly great, like at home, not horribly, but like if you're a married guy and you got kids, then, you know, you're going to have check-ins with your partner or your spouse, be like, yo, the schedule isn't working or whatever. And I was feeling particularly burnt out. And there was some renovations I wanted to do at the gym. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to take, the evening classes off over March break, because we were doing a day camp. And I'm like, I can't physically be there, 16 hours this week. It's too much. I don't want to do it. And you know what? Everyone could use the break, and we got to do some stuff around here. So for me, I was already feeling like extremely kind of exhausted from the whole approach. When COVID happened, it was like, oh crap. And in a week, we had to get creative fast and decide like what we were going to do. I just happened to be in like a lot of martial arts networks on social media, but more importantly, in our karate association, there's 2 or 3 guys that run gyms in the Rhode Island area who were like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And he had kind of a template already put together of being like, we're going to go Zoom. We're going to keep people moving, keep people busy until we can figure things out. And I just said, well, at this point, I already kind of spoke about like you put a lot of your own time and money and effort into something. Are you just going to let, the economy kind of dictate how you're going to run it? Or are you going to, if this is going to be the Titanic ship, are we just going to keep playing like the musicians on the deck? So I said, all right, well, if this is how it's going to go down, I'm going to go down swinging, and I'm going to just keep teaching class. Perfect. Let's just dial back and go back to basics. And we ended up building like a curriculum based kind of on that for the time being, which kept people extremely satisfied. I said, come to as many classes as you want to. You don't have to keep to your particular day. And then I said, to family members, hey, join into our kickboxing session. It's like, well, I don't pay a membership yet. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just keep it active and come to that class. When we're open, maybe you want to come. So then all of a sudden I ended up with 2 or 3 brothers that were training with their sister during a class who I'd never seen before, but they were having fun because nobody could do anything.
Right.
And then mom and dad joined in for the kickboxing class. I'm like, they've never done it before, but they're like, we can't do anything. And you're kind of on. So I ended up kind of indirectly becoming this weird YouTube channel that was going live every day teaching martial arts classes to, my people.
Well, and I like I said, I respect it a lot because as I've gotten to know you, I mean, for people that are listening that don't know, I mean, I've met you through Jiu Jitsu, through Bellum and No Gi and that sort of stuff. But I always knew you kind of in this role as kind of like a guy who was from karate, like trying to learn BJJ. But I've just been impressed with your approach because no, seriously. And
that's my favorite identity.
No, I mean, we'll get into that, but it's just this idea that like, we've seen so many different approaches and we've seen so many people kind of wilt under the pressure and so many people kind of rise to the occasion. And to me, you're one of those guys. I just wonder, like, how did you manage to sort of get through this mentally a little bit? And what was sort of like, did you notice anything positive coming up about these Zoom classes? And did you feel like it was building your community even stronger in some ways? Or were you just kind of trying to hang on so that people wouldn't jump ship?
Kind of everything. I think at first you're like, okay, we got to give people something because people are going to be reactionary and they're going to jump ship. And a lot of people did. We lost a really considerable percentage of our community, of our family, who were just like, look, originally the people like, I kind of hear what you're doing, but I don't want to deal with it. Like, my kid will never, subscribe to that, or I don't want to do it that way. And it's like, okay, well, fine, then. It is what it is. Ironically enough, that's kind of the way everyone's digesting material now. So whether you want to or not, that's how it's happening.
It's kind of just the only way it can go down right now, yeah.
Right. That's neither here nor there. You just kind of like go out of your way to try to make something happen. I think for me, it was easy because I had an opportunity to sit down with my partner and I'm like, okay, look, this is the situation. This is what I'm facing. What should I do? we should think about this, we should try this. And you have people you can bounce things off. Like I called you a couple of times, I called other people. I think for a lot of people, what was important was that they started to check in with the people that they knew they could kind of rely on and trust. So for me, I had a lot of those conversations with guys who were also looking to get creative about their space, and a couple of nights a week, sometimes it was almost every night we would have an hour to 90 minutes of a group chat and a networking chat. Okay, so what are you going to do? And I like that idea. You know what? I'm going to use that too. And hey, do you need a schedule? Let me send you mine. And we just started sharing resources, and it did become about survival, but at the same time, it was intense networking in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Just to get anybody a game plan together to do something. And at first it's like overwhelming, but you recognize pretty quick that people are resilient and they're also looking for content, right? Like most people sat around and how many people binge watched, I started watching Back to the Future. Next thing you know, I did that trilogy, and then I did this, and then I did that. Now I'm watching The Sopranos, and I gained 15 pounds. And then other people were like, yo, I spent $400 on BJJ DVDs.
Yeah,
that would have cost me $1,600, but because there was a mass sale, I've been studying. And so everybody just kind of chose to use their screen time in different ways. I chose to use mine as a way to service the people that were hanging on, because there was a lot of people that were looking at me like, what are you going to do about it? And that's kind of at the end of the day, like when you're the general, when you're the guy in charge, it's like, okay, crap, like here we go.
What would you say maybe are some of the benefits or the positive things that have come out from doing these Zoom classes, online stuff? Would you see any benefits? And do you see this as something that's going to change permanently the way we train?
So there is some benefit to it if you're looking at something like, let's say, it's an instance of karate, and like I'm looking at kata, which is the forms that people do that you see that are a bit abstract. It looks like they're fighting a ghost. And they're screaming in the air and so on and so forth, punching and kicking dynamically. If I'm watching a student of mine doing it in front of the camera for me, I have a hyper awareness factor because I'm not in the same space. So I can nitpick things. I can go back in the video. I can show them. So there are positive parts to specific aspects of training.
Right.
I think the biggest thing that has helped everyone is that when they got back to the gym, they started to appreciate the gym and the community in the gym. Because even now when we have, like our social circle or our designated partner kind of drills or whatever for BJJ, and even somebody said it tonight, a student of mine was like, it's great because my partner's more committed now because they realize that if they don't come, they're letting me down.
Right.
Whereas like if you go to a group class, and it's going to be in a group, you're like, well, so-and-so is going to be there. Or like, it's easy to pass it off because you can kind of negate your responsibility from being there and how it affects other people.
Right.
But if you're in a designated partnership where you're like, no, this is the only game in town. This is the only thing we're doing. 8:30, be here because this is my and your mental, physical outlet.
Yeah.
Then you got to show up. So I think it's kind of helped people when they've gotten back to where they have a bit of a sense of like normalcy, be like, oh, this is why I appreciate you. So maybe the gratitude piece is there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talk about that so much in martial arts about how I'm sure like in jiu-jitsu, we talk about it as sort of quote unquote individual sports. But you realize, especially with situations like this, that how dependent you are really on the people around you to improve, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, if people don't show some sort of a mutual commitment to it, you're not going to be able to get any better if people don't show up. And I just wonder if through all of this, I'm just trying to look at some sort of positives because obviously the negatives have just been glaringly obvious.
Astronomical.
Yeah, I mean, it's, and it's just, I think it does. I think it makes, I mean, when I look at people that I've been able to sort of train with, like, I really appreciate those people being around more because I realize how much, not only do I need them to improve as a grappler or a martial artist, but it's just good to have people that want to be around you and support you. And they've been like my social circle too,
Right.
So hopefully when all this comes back, there might be more of an appreciation of that. Instead of just thinking it's another day, it's another class. I mean, you just never know when all that can change.
It's unfortunate that it takes such extreme
yeah, exactly.
To get people just to kind of recognize it. But even myself, and like I would be remiss as to not say, I started appreciating my position at my gym more after COVID, because it was an opportunity for me to reflect on, hey, what are we going to do here? Do we want to keep this going? What are we going to do long term? Do you still want to do this anymore? Because those Zoom classes, man, I'll tell you, I was doing 6 days a week Zoom classes. Yeah. At 1 week, I was doing about 30, I taught 35 hours of just martial arts online, plus the teaching that I needed to do of day school online, plus giving my kids their education during the day for day school online, and watching my wife's kind of world implode, because she lost her job and had to get another one, and literally juggling chainsaws on fire.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I want to change gears just a little bit, because I am, like I said, I've known you kind of as the guy that's learning jiu-jitsu, and I know a bit about your karate background, but I don't really understand it that well. And so part of the reason I wanted to chat with you is, I'm genuinely curious, because I think there's a lot of interesting aspects to you. And I guess, so tell me a little bit about, like, how did you get started? You alluded to starting it young.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, what motivated you to get into it, and what was the first experience, or what was the first martial art that you started on this road?
So look, I was born in 1982.
Okay.
So like, the Karate Kid came out like the mid 80s.
Yeah. Okay.
And my dad wasn't around a lot. So it was like your real, stereotypical, basically the Karate Kid story for me, like Italian mom, kid estranged from his dad, needs a father figure, needs to develop confidence, physicality, and whatever, and what have you. Friend of mine down the street goes, hey, there's going to be a karate gym like opening up in like the basement of a church, like 2 blocks from where we lived. So like we went down for registration. That was like September 9th, 1991.
Wow.
And I started doing it ever since. It just ironically ended up being involved in this exact same organization that I'm still a part of, and the exact same style of karate that I still do now.
Explain to me a little bit about that, because I think as somebody just as an outsider to the sport and the martial art a bit,
right?
Explain your style that you got involved with, and I suppose how it differentiates itself from the other forms of karate that a lot of people might not be aware of.
So long story short, most karate that people like know about is like Japanese karate, which is been globalized by the Japanese because of the sport of karate.
Was that the style that was on display in the Karate Kid? No, it wasn't. Okay.
So the styles that are on display in the Karate Kid movies are Okinawan karate. And so here's basically like your footnote of how you want to look at it. Martial arts kind of originates in India. It's brought to the Shaolin monks in China, because of a physicality that they need because they're meditating all the time.
Okay.
It's mimicked after the animal movements, mantis, so on, so blah, blah, blah. You go down that whole entire line. Eventually, it disseminates as like a fighting culture, throughout that actual country. There's trade that happens between other South Asian islands and countries, between China and so on. Martial arts being one thing that they can give other people.
Okay.
It ends up in Okinawa, which is at the time the Ryukyu Islands, and several like high-end families end up going to Okinawa to live there. They're teaching Kwang Fa or Kung Fu. The Okinawans already have a type of boxing called like fist.
Okay.
They amalgamate the two. It becomes the original forms of karate that we know. Eventually, there is a takeover of the Okinawan Islands, which are away from Japan. And they become a prefecture, 1897. They take over and they're like, what are you doing? They're like, oh, we have a fighting system. They're like, cool, come to the mainland Japan, teach us how you do it. They go to mainland Japan. They're like, that's great. You need a rank system. They're like, we don't have one. They're like, well, judo does, so use that.
Okay, so that's how they adopted the formal belt system, I suppose. Is that what you're referring to?
Formal belt system, gi, everything. So original karate.
Oh, the gi as well.
Okay. Everything, yeah. In Okinawa, when they were taken over by, the Japanese, essentially, they weren't allowed to train because they didn't want any kind of resistance. So there was a lot of like midnight to 5 a.m. training sessions. They didn't have a uniform because the island's so hot. It would be like in your underwear. Original karate looks a lot like Muay Thai.
Really? That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, original karate looks a lot like Muay Thai, and the techniques, a lot of them are the same. The kata becomes a practice that it's kind of like yoga, right? It's strength training and balance training and cardiovascular training and endurance training in a form that you can practice individualized.
Okay.
So it would be like shadow boxing.
Right. Is that sort of the genesis of kata? Is that what kind of is that what it was designed for effectively?
It's mimicking combative motion for physicality and for kind of mindfulness and presentness in the moment.
So there is you would say a meditative kind of aspect to kata as well. That is is that fair to say? Or
oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And I think that's why they ended up having a lot of this Western medical kind of like practice going like, oh, you know, like if kids had ADHD, which I did, you know, growing up, they'd be like, oh, put them in karate. Because there was a rule system there, there was respect, and people were kind of giving you tasks that you were kind of accomplishing, and you were trying to focus yourself onto a particular element.
Okay.
So there is that to it as well.
And so I guess what was your sort of experience like? Is this something that you were able to compete in at an early age, and were there competitions? And talk to me a bit about that.
So the thing about karate competitions is that they're kind of frustrating.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of really organizing bodies like the United States has. So the United States has the AAU, the athletic, amateur athletic union. They have the WKF, which is the World Karate Federation, IOC related industry, and so on. All of that is underneath a lot of Japanese karate. Now, when the Japanese got a hold of karate and it came to mainland, they kind of popularized it and globalized it to the point where it became this point fighting, tiki-tack.
Okay, right.
So the Okinawans look at that and they're like, oh, that's contemporary like karate, but that's not actual.
Not what it, okay, so there's I suppose a watering down effect, so to speak. Is that fair to say? Or
but yes and no. Okay. I think like it's easy to say that and say, oh, it's watered down. I think that they brought like a higher level of athleticism and gymnastic kind of movement to it. They've made it something different than what it is. Not taking away from it. Is it as combative as it could be? Probably not. But is it still a ridiculous athletic endeavor? Yes, absolutely. So they've kind of popularized the competition, which is the kata. So you're kind of critiqued on the kata as in a performance.
Yeah. Well, hang on a sec. But when we get into sort of competition, then I guess my perspective of competition is really a reference of maybe like wrestling and jiu-jitsu. Yeah. So in a karate competition, there are different elements of it, right? Like there's only two kinds. Okay, we'll elaborate on that a little bit then.
So you can do the forms where you can be critiqued on your forms. So it's like a performance, kind of like a floor routine in gymnastics.
Right. Okay.
And then there's the sparring portion of it.
Okay. All right. And so I guess when you get into competition then on the more combative side, it just seems to me like there's so many different styles of karate. Right. So when there's a competition, how on earth is it is it limited to a certain style, or how do they go about organizing a competition, and what does it look like?
Well, like everything, everything can be very political.
Okay.
So the best way to look at it is when it comes to the highest level of competition karate, it's all Japanese styles, non-Okinawan styles. And it's all the points kind of sparring because it's recognized by, a governing union. So the World Karate Federation, the AAU, the WUKF, and so on, all of the abbreviations that you can think of, all kind of follow along this points kind of fighting situation, which is a lot like fencing.
Right.
So like if I hit you here, it's X amount of points.
Okay.
If I take you down, it's X amount of points. If I hit you with this technique, it's X amount of points. It's kind of like fencing and judo at the same time.
Okay.
A way to maximize the point structure.
Okay. And so is this something that you had a lot of experience then getting into in terms of the competitive aspect of karate?
So the funny thing is that like being my age, it was like I was too young of a generation for MMA. So by the time MMA got popular, I was like already in my past late, whatever 20s, that wasn't going to happen. And there wasn't any organization for this kind of really polished professional sport karate. So I grew up in the era of like dojo wars.
Okay. All right. Well, talk to me a bit about that then. What was that like? And when you say dojo wars, talk to me a little bit about what that means and what some of these experiences were like.
The dojo wars were a lot like the Gracie years, where they would like go to different gyms and then just kind of, your teacher didn't like so-and-so, but they were kind of frenemies. And they're like, yeah, let's get together for, sparring night. And then, your teacher would pull the Cobra Kai on you and be like, we're not losing to these guys. Like, we're going to make. And then you would show up and it would be Friday night. And then it would be like my club versus your club.
Wow.
And they would just pick dirt. And you just went in and beat the hell out of each other. Like,
so this isn't, but I mean, this isn't sort of like the traditional point sparring, or is it?
No,
it was more just like you were just basically fighting each other at that point. Okay.
Yeah, we were just basically fighting each other at that point. I mean, I grew up in a club where we didn't wear gear when we fought. Like I started doing karate like on a terrazzo like floor in the basement of a church. Back when they used to make, if you were a brown belt, you had to do knuckle push-ups.
Right.
Didn't matter what push-ups you were doing, for whatever reason, they all had to be on your knuckles. So like I was way, my hands hadn't fully developed yet as a human being before I started doing knuckle push-ups.
Right.
So like, my body has taken a beating from like learning what it was from the people who were stationed in Okinawa. And that's a whole thing too. So like the whole John Kreese, like Cobra Kai, and your mom's watching it with you and she's like, I hate that guy and he's such a jerk and he's such an asshole. Like that's a real thing.
Okay.
Like that happened a lot for a lot of us, right? Like where we got into these gyms and we didn't have dads and you just had this kind of glorified father figure situation there, just trying to like turn you into somebody that you probably shouldn't be, or you don't have to be if you don't want to be. But like, yeah, in those dojo like storm years, those were fun years. Like when it was sparring night, like you come home and you were beat up, like you were fighting, like straight up fighting even your friends.
Well, so I mean, it's interesting because I mean, I guess like you said, the sport has probably gone and changed and had so many evolutions. And I just wonder what your perception of it is now, because it seems like with the advent of MMA and the UFC, I just feel like a lot of people's perception of karate is that it's not effective. Or and talk to me. No, but I mean, it's interesting to hear your experience with it as this different thing, because a lot of people probably associate it with, and I hate to use the term, but maybe more of a watered down, or it's been sort of changed over the years to be less effective, or they think of kata and not an effective martial art. But I'm sure you have such a different experience with it.
It probably got to the point where people started walking away from it when the UFC got really popular.
Right.
I remember being in, doing karate and then watching the UFC.
Yes.
And being like, and then I remember specifically watching the one where they had like all the styles lined up, and there was the karate guy. It was just
and the guy with the one boxing glove,
and I was like, here we go, here comes the karate guy, and then watching him get worked over and going, like, well, now what? But the problem I think that a lot of people don't see is that really like certain gyms or people that have done it in a certain way recognize that karate is an all-encompassing kind of martial art. It's got takedowns and throws and so on in a really raw form in comparison to other things like judo or jiu-jitsu or wrestling. It's there, but it's in a raw form in comparison. So when I came up learning it, we were learning all that stuff too. But eventually I would think that after the whole Karate Kid boom, it kind of started becoming a little more commercialized. And, for some people, it was like they wanted to build like a dojo that I kind of went to, right? Where you earn your rank, you put in your time, there's a great camaraderie. And for other people, it was like a themed daycare.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Where it was just a way for somebody to learn a little bit and so on and so forth. And that was the thing that I never wanted to do. I never wanted to have like a karate themed daycare, because it just, didn't serve me, and it wasn't something that I wanted from it. But a lot of people have made a lot of money in having karate themed daycares.
Well,
So
I mean, it's just that element you talk about. It's the commercialization, right? I think people see it as an opportunity to make money, and it becomes less about the purity and the effectiveness of the art as much as it's about perception. And I see this a bit, to be honest, I see it happening in jiu-jitsu, and it's a slippery slope that takes time to go down. But I do
right.
see sort of, I mean, even from the time that I started in about 2006 or 2005, just the way that belts are awarded now has been changed quite dramatically in my time. And like, what was it, I mean, it was commonplace for people to stay at a certain belt for 6-7 years, like
Yeah.
easily, and it's just changing now from my perspective. So it is that money piece. Is that sort of the biggest thing that you think changed kind of the perception of it? Is that more and more of these kind of more financially motivated gyms popped up?
You know what? I think anytime you give somebody an opportunity to make money at something, they're going to try to make money in it.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
They're going to try to find a loophole for it, or so on and so forth. It really just comes down to, for me, I loved when MMA popped off, and a lot of karate people hated it. And I will tell you that I liked it because I was like, finally, you guys aren't going to be able to sell snake oil anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you can't turn around, like, because there's a lot of places, and people will ask me like, well, where should I go? I'm like, you should go to a place where you feel comfortable and accepted and feel like you're going to get the work you need. Same thing for your kids, but also you should like value and honor the instructor that's teaching you. Like, they know that they can teach you something. If you've seen, like, it's like if you go to the YMCA and get a personal trainer, and then you go to a legit gym.
Yeah.
Like, you go to the Y, and some of these people are like 50 pounds overweight, and they're having a smoke outside. And you're
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? Like, you're paying this person to give you fitness advice. And then at the same time, it's like you're willingly bringing your son or daughter to a place to teach self-defense. And you look like, your kid in 2 years could mess this person up. Like, is that what you want to do? But what are you in it for? So maybe your son or daughter needs a lot of confidence, and they just need to belong to something.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's kind of a theme in society to a degree. I mean, my dad taught at Brock University for over 40 years, and even my experiences in university over the years changed. And it's just this idea that people, there's a less of a drive to earn something. I think people come into it and already feel that they're entitled to something.
Right.
I've seen that in jiu-jitsu a lot as well. And it's this idea that people just want the belt. They don't really want the sacrifice. They don't really want to put the time in, because it's a lot of work and it's hard. And I see this push in jiu-jitsu kind of happening where it's literally for anybody and everybody, which I think it can be, but I hate to see it become, I have just put in X amount of time, therefore I deserve this belt. Because I don't think it's a time thing. It's a skill development thing, and it's a sort of a personal growth thing.
Right.
But I do think it's an overall social thing where people just feel like they're paying their money, they're showing up, and they want whatever the accolade is without actually assessing the road that they're on to get it.
Well, you know what, and that's kind of why I like jiu-jitsu is, and you had mentioned before, you're like, well, I already think, and I think that you should be, and whatever. For me, it's like, maybe it's because I've had my run where it's like, I've had some accolades, and, to me, they're important. They might not be like globally important to everybody.
No, I think they're important. I think it's an accomplishment. You've paid a pretty steep price to get them as well,
That's true, but at the same time, it's not like as notoriable as like, I won the trials, right?
Yeah.
Or I did this, or I did that. So like, I'm accomplished in that little bit. So it's not like it wouldn't be great to get another one, but at the same time, it's like, I like training because I get to hang out with people that I like hanging out with, and I get to get better. Whereas a lot of people, if they maybe haven't had that belt structure yet, or they haven't gone through that a little bit, then it's more about the rank, because it gives them that sense of achievement and accomplishment. For me, the accomplishment is just being able to get out twice a week to roll.
Yeah.
Is like, that's an accomplishment. Being able to say that I got better at a triangle is an accomplishment. Whereas other people, it's like, no, actually winning something or having something tangible.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with your sentiment a lot, but that's sort of you as an experienced martial artist talking. I think it takes people time to get there, and
Oh, hell yeah.
and the belts are supposed to reflect that mentality. They're not.
But you know what?
They're not supposed to necessarily be the destination. And I'm not saying that they aren't. Like I was very happy and I wanted to get promoted and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but I think maybe it's just because once you get them, you realize that like nothing's really changed, right?
No.
It's like you're put on a different T-shirt, but you're still the same person, or you still have the same flaws, you know?
That T-shirt is really nice.
Yeah, it's made out of patent leather, and it's got
No, everybody like, and you know what? And I don't want to lie to you right now, and like in general, and I won't. I'm like the first person where like, I want to get promoted. Like. Yeah,
well, it is. I mean, it's part of it's baked into the formula, right? Like if there were belts in wrestling, people would want to get a belt in wrestling.
Well, and that's how you end up with kids belts in jiu-jitsu. Like, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Well, can you imagine trying to keep kids like from age 8 to like 18, and then you give them a blue belt? Like, no, you got to give them something, right? Like, and whoever came up with that is a genius. And
yeah.
That's kind of how you see it, anything goes, right? And the reward system is tried and tested and true. But
you brought up an interesting point about kids. Well, where did this idea of like kids black belts and all that kind of come from? And what are your thoughts on that?
Because you're going to end up with kids who start training at like a really young age, and then they get to a particular age, and you're like, well, now what am I going to do with you? Like, because everybody needs a curriculum to grow with.
Yeah.
So what I think people have an issue with is when they see kids who get black belts and they're like, you shouldn't give a kid a black belt. Well, okay, hold on. Let's talk about this. What about if you end up creating a program at your school where you have like a little dragons program, let's say, which is a popular term, and it's from ages 3 to 5.
Right.
And you have a kid that starts with you, and at the end of his 2 years, he ends up with a little dragons black belt.
Okay.
Is that kid a black belt? No. He's a black belt in the 5-year-old program.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like that. So pump the brakes. So then he goes into the kids program right after, and he's like, cool. Well, I'm a little dragons black belt. Dope. Come on in. So now you get to start wearing the big kid belts. And so at the end of his run in the kids program, now he's 13, he's 14. And here's a junior black belt. What's that? Well, it means you've gone the junior part of the curriculum as a senior student would be as an adult. Dope. Then he moves from that program, he goes into the adult class, and he starts working for a couple of years on his actual black belt. Now the kid's almost 18 years old, and he is a fully licensed black belt.
Right.
Kid's gotten 4 black belts since he was 3 years old. Which one matters? To him, all of them, but at the same time, the last one is the one that kind of completes the cycle. So then you get, Johnny so-and-so on social media that's like, you can't give kids black belts, and why would you do it? No one's saying you're giving them a black belt like it's a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belt. We're saying that you're giving them a black belt based on that part of the curriculum. So if you got a junior program, cool, they're their junior black belt. Right. What does it matter?
Well, I guess, and I don't really have a terribly strong opinion either way. I think I think the perception is that it somehow devalues the black belt, or... You
know what, I'll tell you something about black belts is that we in the Western world put way more accolade and like shine on it than they do in the East.
Interesting. Tell me about that then. Yeah.
In Japan, everybody has a black belt.
Really, eh?
Everybody has a black belt. It's like being in Canada. Who doesn't play hockey?
Yeah.
So some people play pickup hockey. Cool. Like they might be the top guy in their pickup hockey league, their beer man league.
Right.
Right. So some people play in the pros. Some people play semi-professional. Some people play collegiately, but they're all the top guy in whatever it is that they do. So somebody might be a black belt at a rec program who's not going to be as good as the black belt that's in the professional program, or the black.
Right.
It's a part of their culture. It's what they do. Martial arts is what they do. So everybody train.
So you just think it's more of it's it's more of an issue of perception than it is of anything else. It's just that we've come to value this thing so deeply, and our sense of that has just been skewed over the years, kind of.
Right. Like well, if you look at, jiu-jitsu lineage, they've got 10 ranks of jiu-jitsu black belt. It's the same thing in karate. It's same thing in judo. It's all borrowed from the same belt system. So if you have a shodan or your first degree black belt, it's shodan. It just means first rank.
Right.
It just means like, oh, cool. Like you're a proficient student. You've got some basics down underneath you. You're good. It would be the same as somebody doing jiu-jitsu for forever is looking down at a coral belt years and looking at the new black belts coming in.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're proficient against somebody that doesn't know that much, but are you that skilled amongst the people that are all the way down this line? And maybe you'd hope so. But a lot of those guys end up what? They end up with these really advanced ranks when they're way too old to pull off any of these techniques. So what's the purpose of that? And a lot of the time, the purpose of that is because of the knowledge of what they're giving on to the people underneath them or the association that they've built.
Well, I see this in jiu-jitsu a lot, and I find that what's happening in this day and age is that even the belts themselves have such a wide spectrum of meaning now. Like I think that was always true to a degree, but as jiu-jitsu's become wildly more popular, more commercialized, you're seeing people get promoted for different reasons. Like I've had people that I've trained with people that were unbelievable competitors through all the belts, but may have progressed at the same time as somebody that was a pure hobbyist and never competed. And so whether or not you have an issue with that is really the debate, but it's just, I've seen people in circles. In fact, I've seen people from some really high profile gyms that have come to work with us that really look down on people that might have been a brown or a black belt because that's what they were. And these guys were like, they were doing jiu-jitsu full time, like 5 days a week, 7 days a week, 2-3 times a day.
Right.
And so there was this kind of resentment for these people wearing the same rank because they're putting so much more into it. What do you make of that sort of thing?
Well, it's not uncommon, like you end up with, it was once told to me before, it was like, there are black belts and there are black belts.
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, Joe Rogan kind of says that all the time.
And you're like, that's one thing to say, and it's kind of one thing to kind of digest and understand, but it's another thing to kind of have to be a part of. So I can remember being that group of training 14, 16 hours a week, hard, go. And then now I'm a little bit older and I'm like more of the teaching guy and maybe a little less of that guy. I can see there being a pro and a con to both. I think it really just depends on the kind of gym that you want, but it all comes down to the popularization of the martial art. When BJJ started, it was probably a lot more savage in gyms than it can be now.
It's different. It's changed a lot in terms of, I think it's, the type of people that are drawn to it.
Right.
And in my opinion, I see a big difference kind of in the MMA, No Gi, and the Gi world. I think it tends to draw a very different demographic a lot of times now. And
you're going to get the gyms that are in like Beverly Hills that are going to be a lot different than the gyms that are in San Diego.
Absolutely.
So it really depends on where you go. Some gyms are open because they want to be more, encompassing and community driven, whereas other gyms are more competition focused. And that's just become, because jiu-jitsu's gotten so popular, it's gotten all of these little platforms that you can expand from it.
Yes. Yeah.
You've got the wardrobe, the lifestyle,
but I would say that, in my opinion, a lot of that is driven by commercialization. I think the jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
I love the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, but I think it's sold in some ways as a marketing piece, right? Because then it's about buying products. It's about wearing the patch. It's about, and I'm not saying that's true of everybody, but I do think that that's been it's sort of a silent motivating force behind a lot of it, is that you get buy-in from people that are not only investing in a sport, but they're investing now in this new lifestyle, this new sort of image. And I do think there's big money in it, I mean, the movement I've seen is, I remember when I first started is the kind of the dingy dojo. It's kind of small, it was a gritty environment. A lot of those gyms existed. And now people like the Mendez brothers have moved more towards this very sort of white collar image where the mats are white and everything's white, and I've never been a huge fan of that per se. Like I mean, sometimes I feel more at ease at like a Parabellum gym than I do in like an Uber.
Yeah.
Maybe just because I'm a little more blue collar minded, I think. Being from Hamilton, my dad grew up as an immigrant. I'm kind of more drawn to that, but I do see that changing a lot in the sport as well.
I think it is a bit of a preference, but everything has got that pendulum, right?
Yeah.
So what started savagely is now going to that whole,
And
like,
that's don't let me get confused. I mean, the Mendes, I don't mean that as if these guys are savages. Like, their students are unbelievable. I didn't mean it as a knock against it. I'm just saying there is an attempt to sort of move away from the kind of old dojo vibe that used to be out there, is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I feel it. That's like a huge industry for me too, as well as like I want to try to play the gray area. It's like I want people to come and feel like, yeah, my kid's really is going to learn some stuff here, but at the same time, like I don't need for there to be like a valet parking out front, and I don't want there to be a juice bar in the club, like,
yeah,
where it becomes all of a sudden like this social hangout and plus this and plus that and plus that. It's like, no, this is a good old fashioned martial arts gym with a few extras.
right.
Whereas if you offer more extras, maybe you end up with a different clientele. It kind of all depends on kind of how well you want to do it, right? Like the West Side Barbell versus Good Life Fitness. Two completely different business models. They're both involved in health and wellness, but one's, the nitty gritty and the other is a little bit more posh.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, there is debate even in the jiu-jitsu community about that, because there are gyms that want to be more flow, recreational, and then there's gyms that resent that because they want to be, they quote unquote pohada every day, where it's just throwing down 24/7,
Right.
So,
and well, it's kind of like a young man's game. Somebody once said to me too, like martial arts can be for health and it can also be for combat.
Yeah.
And sometimes you find yourself like flipping back and forth between the two.
Right. Well, I mean, we're getting into jiu-jitsu more. I'm so curious about like what gets you into jiu-jitsu. I find it so fascinating that, well, no, I'm just curious about what gets you there, especially because you got drawn into No Gi. And I find that interesting as a guy that's come from a more traditional martial arts background, where I would just assume somebody like you would be drawn towards the gi more. So tell me a little bit about where that came from.
So my best friend, best man at my wedding, Jordan Short, he's a BJJ Black Belt under Rob Veltman at Kobukan Sisu in Guelph.
Okay.
And when we were in a heavy metal band together in college.
Oh, damn. All right. I didn't know that about you. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, back
Hardcore Steve.
Hardcore Steve. We were living together on Fountain Street in Guelph. And he says to me at one point, he was like, yo, I want to do a martial art. I was like, cool. Like, what are you thinking? And he's like, well, I'm thinking about jiu-jitsu. So this was at the time when UFC was coming back with the Ultimate Fighter 1, Forrest Griffin,
right,
Stephen Bonner situation. So we were getting back into that. And we were like, Friday nights, let's go watch the UFC, some dive bar somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
We're doing that. And he starts getting into it. So he's like, okay, well, I'm going to do jiu-jitsu. I'm like, good for you. But I'm like literally the only other person he knows with a gi. So he starts competing early, like a lot of white belts do, right? And he's like, do you want to help me like prepare? And I'm like, totally. Right? Like,
yeah, I'm down.
And I think subconsciously it was like, well, I'm a black belt in like karate. So like, and what just basically started as him in his tournament career was him just working me over constantly for hours on end, smashing the crap out of me on like my own mats, because we would roll at my club after hours. It's like he didn't have a key to his place, so right. I had a key to my place. So we go to my place and we would just work forever. And stupid shit like, let's roll 1 hour, no water, no breaks. Like, why? But because I was falling in love with the sport,
right?
And he was, wanted to compete. So he did very well, like right off the bat, because he was getting a lot of rounds on these guys who didn't know anything. And we did that for forever. And so I just slowly started to learn a little bit from him and a little bit more from him and a little bit more from him. But then the no gi thing came from like two things, probably three. One, I've been wearing a gi for the majority of my life,
Yeah.
and I kind of felt like doing something that I didn't have to wear another gi in. Two, I was getting really tired of getting loop choked.
Yeah, that can be
Like
a little bit of a frustrating
I
experience.
and I was getting caught in all kinds of like fabric related chokes where I was getting really upset, like to the point where I was very, very perturbed every time. I'd be like, no, okay, you can't do that loop choke anymore this round. And then he would just find another variation of something, and I couldn't defend it. I was getting really upset. And the third was because I was falling in love with the sport more, like EBI started coming out.
Yeah,
And
yep,
that's when
absolutely.
like Danaher Death Squad
Yep.
started to kind of become like a bit popular. So I was jumping fanboy into that. And then I knew somebody that was hooked up with Rory and Lyndon
Okay.
at Para because he was coach there at the time, Aaron Dietrich. And we
Yes.
had some mutual friends in education and teaching. So I got in contact with them and some introductions were made. And I just said, I just want to start training at the gym and getting better. And I hear this is the place to be. So, and that was 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Okay. What I like about you though too is that I think even though you've gotten into it, you do have this kind of like joy about you to learn something new, and I do admire that because I think it's I always bust your balls about karate and stuff like that, but I just think it's not that easy to go back to just square one a little bit, and you've just had this great attitude about trying to learn sort of again. So tell me a little bit about that mentality. I think it's people talk a lot about it. Like I've heard that a million times,
Yeah.
but not a lot of people walk that walk. So what is it about you that allows you to kind of go into a gym like that, a very competitive gym? Like that's what a lot of people, if you've never trained at Parabellum, it's not the best or easiest place necessarily if you're going for day one. And I don't mean that as a knock. It's just, it's very much a more old school mentality. It's kind of
Yeah.
a sink or swim mentality.
Yeah.
It's not the kind of place where you're going to get pampered or babied, or it's basically like if you show up there and do a class 2 and never come back, no one is going to know, and
Yeah.
a lot of people come and go. It's not for everybody kind of thing. So I just think it's a really interesting place that you showed up because it's
Yeah.
probably I mean, in a way, I suppose maybe does it remind you of the old days and maybe is that why you're drawn to it a little bit?
Yeah. There's like nostalgia there.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I like the old school mentality, the
Yeah.
old school vibe, like earn your keep and build a camaraderie and you're the new guy. So, people are going to rip on you. And I think for me, what I really enjoyed the most about it was no one was ever going to give me any respect for anything that I had done previously to that point, which was great, which means that no one was going to ask me questions. People were going to call me Steve, like by my first name. And it's been so long since I've been in an
Yeah.
academy where no one was asking me the question, asking me for advice, telling them what they needed to do. I was just Steve on the wall.
Now
Like,
you just became Hey Douchebag at
yeah,
Parabellum, and it was great.
hey, this guy, oh my God, I have the
I'm
best,
just
I
kidding.
have the two best stories.
All right, I love how calling you a douchebag is bringing up all these good memories for you, Steve. All right, let her rip.
So when I first started rolling there, I was going in the summertime a lot, and a lot of the pros were
Oh
coming
God, the
out
summer in those and that holy shit. It
a lot.
is just for anybody that hasn't rolled there in the summer, zero air conditioning, hot as fuck. Literally at the end of practice, you can push someone and they'll go from one end of the mat to the other with very little resistance. It's like a wet banana. Anyways,
It's
go on.
disgusting. But it's great because that's kind of what Okinawa is like when you go and you train there to do karate. Like in the summertime, like if
Okay.
you go, it's like feels like 50-degree humidity.
It smells like cheese there too?
It smells horrible. It's horrible.
Oh God, sorry.
It's horrible smelling. So the one day I was like, we were working on something, and I ended up getting partnered up with Adam Asenza.
Oh, okay, yeah, pro fighter, pro MMA fighter.
Nice guy,
super
totally,
great,
right?
super nice guy. Really like athletic, pound for pound, former gymnast.
Right. You want to talk about like a gym where like really where people don't really give a crap about you or whatever. So we're going through this drill and I'm a noob, so I'm like totally screwing it up. Like I don't know what a like I don't know how to get an underhook. Like
what? A what?
I don't know. I don't know. Like I think I know, but I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what a crossface is. Like, and so you can tell like it's going not so great for him, right? Like, so he's just like, hey man, I just got to go to the bathroom real quick, and he just like never came back to the
That's amazing. I'm tagging
remember,
Adam Asenza in this right now. We are calling Adam Asenza out.
And he just never came back to the mat. And I was like, okay, cool. Like he came out of the bathroom, but just never came back to the mat. And I was just like really quick, like, yeah, no, he doesn't want to roll with me. And I get it. So it's one of those.
Well, I mean, look, in fairness to him, he's a pro fighter, right? So it's not, he's not there to do like a typical, he's jumping in trying to get work for his fight. So we love you, Adam. It's an understandable thing. I've walked away from Steve as a jiu-jitsu guy many times, and I've gone to the bathroom and never come back. And that's a common thing. No, I'm just kidding.
I was fine with it. I was like, yo, fair enough. And in my head, I'm just laughing because I'm thinking of like, wow, that was interesting. And then like another time, we're going over this drill, and it was a wrestling drill, and Nav was there. Oh, yeah. And he was kind of trying to run it, and I was botching it up like horribly. And he goes, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm trying to do this. He goes, what are you trying to do? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, what do you want me to do? And he goes, I want you to wrestle. And I just go, hey man, real quick, like some of us have never wrestled.
Yeah, that's a pretty vague term, Nav. Could you be a little slightly more specific with the criticism?
I was like, you do know some of us have never wrestled, right? And he goes, oh yeah. Okay, well hang on. You got to do this.
And did he go to the bathroom? Did Nav go to the bathroom too? And him and Asenza just fucking met in the toilet and left?
But the amount of cut-eye and shade that I've gotten at Para, like even in a joking manner or even in a serious manner, has been the most fun that I've had in a room, because it's honest. It's an honest room. It's the place where you go to get better. It might not be the place where you go to learn fast, but it's definitely a place where you learn lessons fast.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, I mean, Nav's like that with even me when I'm trying to do stuff. Nav is kind of a perfectionist, and he's a great instructor and has a good eye for detail. But he's not gonna pull punches. So
of course not. But that's probably the reason why I like the space so much, is that it is a no nonsense place, and a lot of people may come and go based on the fact that it's welcoming, but like you don't go out of your way to expect to be welcomed, right? Like it's going to be a nice place when you put in the work to fit the vibe of the room.
Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I mean, that gym was one of probably the biggest factor in 2019 for me having such a great run. I mean, it's just not. I just understand that this is what I mean when I talk about the evolution of BJJ as a sport. More gyms are moving way, way, way away from that, right? Like even the Atos model, we've talked with Andre Galvao, and I mean they want to make it a more pleasant experience, right? I mean, whether it's commercial or looking to build a good team, you don't want to force people out the door before they even get a chance to get comfortable, because the person that you scare off could have been a world champion. I mean, you really have no idea, right? Like even when I look at my introduction to the sport, if you had thrown me in a room like Bellum, I probably would have never done the sport again. Do you know what I mean? Like I started at a small gym, and in a lot of ways, I think that was really beneficial for me because I wasn't an athletic guy. I didn't wrestle. I played a little basketball. So I got an introduction into a smaller environment, right? More controlled environment, which was less, I had to work my way out of there to get better. So it allowed me this sort of arc to grow into the more hardcore scenario gym. So I admire that, because I don't think I would have probably made it, so.
Well, I was used to getting my butt handed to me.
Yeah.
All of those years of my buddy Jordan just working me over in jiu-jitsu. So it wasn't, I was like, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to get worked over.
Yeah.
And I did, but I really enjoyed kind of like working with the guys there, because I liked the work ethic, because I was used to that. Like being in a hot and sweaty room and working, like either from basketball or football, and like in high school and stuff still too. So I like the work. The work is fun for me.
Well, and that's what I always liked, and I still like about you, is I knew there was something different about you just because you had this, there's this certain, like, you have this like smile on your face, and there's a certain joy of, even when you're losing. And I admire that because it is rare, right? Like, a lot of people say that, oh yeah, it's all about, I don't mind losing. It's like the belt thing. The belt doesn't matter. People don't want to lose, and people don't want to get smashed all the time, And as much as we talk about loving learning, it's also frustrating as hell because you want to get better. Like, nobody wants to stay at square one for as longer than is necessary,
No. I enjoy it because, like, I know that I'm actually learning something, and I think maybe it's because I come from a multidiscipline thing. So, like, when someone's putting on a technique to me, I can go back a couple of layers and be like, you know what it looks like? It looks like this move out of this kata that I learned when I was 12.
Right.
So now I'm like, and I'm get to connect all the dots and put all of those things together. But also at the same time too, like, it is fun. Like, it's fun learning how to, like, choke somebody. It's fun learning how to pick somebody up and drop them on their head. And some of these things for a lot of people, and maybe it's just because I feel really fortunate that I'm not uncomfortable learning those things or being in an uncomfortable situation, because that's where you are going to get that growth. But learning a combat sport is really difficult physically, mentally, and emotionally. And if you can be comfortable in a room with...
Hang up on me, you giant piece of shit.
I don't know.
I don't know what happened there.
This podcast has been doomed.
It's just been a fucking shit show from the start. This is like the third recording I have of this, so don't worry, it's all saved. Don't worry, I got all this. I got all the material. So look,
I don't even know what I was saying.
We were talking a bit about how you like to roll around with sweaty, half-naked men, but I'd like to change gears. Just not change gears really, but I'd like to get away from that as fast as possible. I'm curious though. Oh my God. I'm curious though, tell me what it's like from your vantage point about the differences in the cultures between Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and your karate experience.
Oh, it's cooler.
Okay.
Man, like, people think that karate is, like, supposed to be this really regimented and intense thing. In Japanese karate, like, it can be, where it's very like, whoosh, and like, in Okinawa, like, karate is, like, pretty laid back. Like, it's more surf culture. Even though it's a really brutal art form, the people that do it are, like, really nice people. So it reminds me a lot of jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Because you end up with a lot of these guys that are like, yeah, bro, and we're gonna go and we surf, and, like, we're gonna eat, and then we're gonna roll.
Yeah,
and, like,
that Brazilian kind of lifestyle. Train hard, train like savages, and then go surf and chill and
and so, like, that's what karate is really like on the island. And it just gets interpreted by other people into those things. So for jiu-jitsu, for me, it's like I like the culture because it reminds me of, I think, what martial arts is more like than, like, a Western's interpretation of what we think Eastern culture is like.
Okay.
As opposed to, like, when you go to Okinawa, you find out really quick. It's like, well, it's pretty chill. If you go to mainland Japan, you're gonna be like, it's not as chill as Okinawa. It'd be the same as, like, going to some Eastern Bloc countries and then going to Russia. You're gonna be like, things are a little more intense here than they are in other spots.
Right.
So for me, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I like it because it's more... I tell people this all the time. I think the biggest selling point for me is that the mats don't lie. There are judges and whatever, but the technique speaks for itself.
Yeah.
So it's pretty true. Like, so if I'm going to be your friend on the mat, I know you respect me because you know what I can do physically to you, and you know what I can, and vice versa, rather. And one person's going to be better than the other person, but that doesn't dictate how your relationship with that person's going to be.
Right.
Whereas, like, in more traditional martial arts, it's like a guy can outrank you and he can be a total dick, and you're kind of expected to kiss his ass.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And you don't end up with that true camaraderie. Like, it's just a lot of political posturing and so on.
I think that's kind of changed actually a little bit in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu too, a little bit. I think that kind of formality is still there, but it seems to be diminishing somewhat. Because like I know certain gyms where like if you go up to a black belt and ask him to roll as an inferior rank, like a lesser rank, like that's a big no. And like, do you know what I'm saying? It's like they're supposed to kind of dictate kind of the terms and all that kind of stuff. And I never was a fan of that. And that's part of the reason I've always loved training with PJ, was that he was just a very down-to-earth guy. Like, it wasn't about that. Like, PJ wasn't trying to be the alpha in the room. And in a lot of gyms, that's still the case. You know, I sort of talk sometimes there's a bit of false modesty in jiu-jitsu gyms where it's like, hey, we're all equal, but like, if push comes to shove and that head instructor starts getting tapped out by somebody that's a lesser rank, they're not so cool about it anymore.
Yeah.
Or you're beating them with certain techniques that they don't know, and it's kind of like, no, we don't do that here, you know? I've still encountered that from time to time with some people. So it still is there to a degree, but it certainly is more sort of chill, I think, now than it ever has been.
It's funny because like I try to incorporate more of that now at my gym, where it's just like I always tell people like,
kissing your ass.
I don't know. I don't.
It's become
want
a thing. No, I know.
Whereas like, and now some people, because I don't institute it as much as I used to, it rubs my other students the wrong way. The ones who are like,
right, because they're a little more.
They'll call me sensei in the grocery store.
Wow.
You know, like if they see you out in the street, like they'll be like, sensei, and you're just like, you don't have to, but like, you know, you recognize that it's a term of endearment that they.
Sure. It's one thing if it's voluntary, like if you like, even, you know, it's one thing. Yeah, it's not like you're making it mandatory. If people choose to call you that, that's fine.
Right.
But
that is the worst. The worst is when it's like a forced upon you kind of thing that you have to kind of prescribe to, or when people force it upon you. You just have to let it kind of happen organically.
And I do think it's funny because even though people, it's such a true thing in life too. But I know sort of well-established black belts that sort of act that way and demand it, but people don't. But people, they may act like that in your class, but they don't actually respect you the way you would want them to. Do you know what I mean? Because it is forced. I'd rather kind of be like the more sort of chill guy that people like you because you're down to earth and because you're still, you know what I mean? I don't know. Those are the people that I've always liked. So I think always demanding that out of people is kind of a mistake. I don't think it actually gets you what you want.
The second you start like forcing on people like what they need to say or how they need to say it, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Well, COVID's going to happen, right? Like you need to do this. Well, F you, we're going to do it anyway. Like speakeasy jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. So what for you has been, you know, we've talked a lot about the benefits and the difficulties, I suppose, but what's been the hardest part for you, I guess, making this transition to Brazilian jiu-jitsu?
Jesus, there's been a lot. You know what? Well, the first part was thinking that I was more skilled than I was.
Right.
And not do like, and always thinking that because I had done martial arts for so long that I had it like everybody else has to start the instructions on page 1, but I could start at page 7.
Yeah. Well, which is a kind of a natural, you'd think there'd be some, you know, you'd think that it's not even an arrogance. You'd think, okay, well, clearly I'm not at base level, right? You know,
well,
like there's some transfer over here, right?
I wanted it to be like that so bad.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't. Like there wasn't like anything that can prepare you for learning how to do it and learning how to do it correctly. The second part was probably like I never really saw any benefit in like drilling technique. I just wanted to roll.
Yeah. Let's get to this part. Dude, you're just like every other, you're no different from any other Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu student. Nobody wants to drill. Everybody wants to just, let's do 5 minutes of technique and then let's roll for an hour and a half. That's basically it. So you fit right in. You're perfect.
I was just like, let's just go at it. And like, we'll figure it out as we go. And then I just recognized really quickly, like I was really game, you know, all the time, but I didn't have
absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know, I'm game to do it, but I have no game. So I'm just like a human gas tank.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was the hardest part. And then like probably and learning to sit down and listen to people that are better than you, and to do it slowly, like to go through the steps. Now I know what I can do and what I can't do. And so it's easy for me to go, okay, I know I got to get better at that. But at the same time, I can always fall back on old reliable over here, right?
Yeah.
Like, and knowing what a game plan is, right? I can remember like making like transitions inside of a match and being like, oh my God, I can listen to people and know what I'm supposed to do right now. And like when someone says, crossface, I'm like, I know what that is, right? Like, I need you to grab this. I'm like, I know what that is. So it's kind of exciting because I actually know that, as opposed to just being on the fly. But the transition of it was tough because I wanted to be really good at it quick.
Yeah.
And I didn't really like embrace the white belt status as much as I do now. So now I'm like, okay, I'm embracing it like across the board. Like I want to get merch, like world's longest white belt, or like,
merch. Well, I mean, look, it's interesting too, though. I mean, you have had success in competition. I mean, that's not something that, to win the Grappling Industries in 2007. I mean, there's a lot of people that never.
That was my first tournament.
So clearly you've gotten worse over time, is what it
appears.
Yeah, no,
okay,
all right. That's horrible. A bit of a concerning trend, but no, I'm kidding.
We had just beginner's luck, and then just all the way down.
No, but I mean, you have had a lot of success. I mean, that's something to be proud of. Like, I mean, you've jumped into competition and you've done well early. I wonder what your experience has been like competing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus some of maybe these other karate competitions or even the Dojo Storm days. Like, what has that experience been like for you, and what are the things that you've maybe learned about it that surprised you or maybe came a little more naturally to you?
So competing in BJJ was pretty natural because I find that so I did a lot of athletic sports like my whole life. I did a lot of basketball, a lot of football, a lot of martial arts.
You were also in a rock band, so that's
in a rock band.
That's a sport as well.
So you're used to being in front of people.
Yeah, well, actually, I was kidding, but that is a factor. That actually is a factor. Performing in front of people is its own skill in a lot of ways.
You get over that stage fright kind of element pretty quick. The thing that's crazy about traditional karate is that, like, when you are assessed for things, you have to perform like kata or these these actual forms in front of somebody, and it's very nerve-wracking. So it's
I believe it. Yeah,
it's you, and you're up against you're in this small room with a 90-year-old guy in the corner with a notepad, and he's like, okay, you need to perform this with perfection, go. And it's no different than like a kid that has to present a musical piece for a conservatory or something. It's a lot of pressure all at once, and you get one shot and you have to do it. So when it came to like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's like, okay, here's the deal. Like, you got to go up against this guy. One of you is going to win. One is going to lose. You're in front of these people. There's some judges. And I'm like, okay, I kind of get this whole thing.
Well, you're used to dealing with pressure and having consequences on you.
Yeah.
It doesn't really, that is something unique that not everybody gets to experience early on. Like, you can train in the gym, and that's one thing, but we all know that competition is different because there's more at stake. So it sounds like you've had lots of opportunity to at least experience that a bit. So
it was, and that's kind of what I think I enjoyed about BJJ right off the bat, was the competition aspect of it, because it just kind of gave me an opportunity to get into something that was familiar, but at the same time new.
Yes.
And I was like, but I enjoy this. And so for a lot of people, they found it to be the most nerve-wracking, whereas I found it to be like the most fun for me. I was like, oh, let's just do this because this will be cool, and I'll figure it out along the way. And again, there's that whole like, let's just roll, give me an arm bar, and I'll figure out how to do the rest of it along the way. Like, that doesn't necessarily like add up after a while. But yeah, definitely. Like, I enjoyed competing early because it was the most similar to anything that I had done.
Right.
Everything else, not similar.
Right.
And I attribute a lot of my success right now to working with Vinny. Like,
yeah, I wanted to actually ask you about that. So, you've had this relationship now with Vinny Diaz, so purple belt. For how long has it been going on for now?
So it's been like a year in June, so a little over a year now.
Just over a year. And I mean, for people that haven't met Vinny, like, it just goes to show you in this day and age with rank. I mean, the guy's a purple belt, and he's just dismantling black belts left, right, and center. And I don't even feel like I know jiu-jitsu anymore when I roll with him.
Right.
But tell me a little bit about that relationship with him and what the experience has been like with him as a teacher there.
So working with Vin has been fantastic based on the fact I don't know any 21-year-old that would like pick up like a ragtag bunch of BJJ wannabes from like a city outside of, Toronto and religiously show up twice a week to ensure people are getting better, and then constantly go out of their way to teach privates or to build certain individuals into competitors, or to be building a curriculum that is based on, what we need to do to get better, not necessarily what we think will be so fun.
Yeah, exactly. And that's,
it's been interesting to watch. So I've enjoyed every piece of the process because, it was really clear to see early on that Vinny knows what he was doing, and he's a high level competitor, and he's a high level thinker when it comes to BJJ. And I wanted somebody like that. And I was used to kind of having to deal with people like myself or personalities like mine. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give this kid a shot because I believe in him, and it seems to be going well. But it's different, man. Like being the karate guy, having a jiu-jitsu program wasn't like an easy thing to pull up off the ground.
Talk to me a little bit about the evolution of that and what people's perception were in a more traditional gym, not only starting this martial art that they're not familiar with, but it's no gi. So what was the sort of attitude like, and the reception, and how has that changed over time?
My people were really positive to it because they knew how much I liked grappling, because of how much I brought it to our gym. I think from a traditional martial arts standpoint, people hated the fact that I was spending time on it and that I was giving like class time up to it. Not my students, but like as a karate perspective.
Okay.
From a BJJ perspective, no one really told me, but I know that a lot of people thought it was a bad idea, and that like certain, people didn't think it was a smart move, or that I was kind of getting mocked kind of behind the scenes a little bit about it.
Wow. Okay.
So which was not unexpected, but at the same time,
but mocked in the sense of what? Like why mocked? Like they just didn't think it was a legit martial art, or they just didn't think that it would take off, or what was the kind of sentiment like?
Well, just the same thing with like when you say the word karate in a jiu-jitsu gym or a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym or like a wrestling gym or whatever, people are going to go, ugh, like it just, why would you do that? Right? Like, and why would you want to associate with, or why would you want to put your name to, or why would you want to try to? Because that was a bit off-putting, because I always try to put myself out as, and I think maybe that was what forced me to compete early on, was just to be like, not only am I going to be the guy that's going to do this, but then I'm going to compete too. And then maybe if I have some success, people will take me seriously. Or even if I don't have success, they'll at least see me trying and go, okay, well, we'll give him a pass, right? Like, because he's actually trying to do is like a bit of an effort with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what was important for me. I just wanted to be taken seriously as a newbie and somebody that wanted to bring programming to a city that didn't have it.
Right.
I didn't care about like having a positionship in anything. And then all of a sudden, like COVID pops off, and like all these jiu-jitsu clubs are starting to talk about, well, what are you going to do? And what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I'm having these conversations with guys that like own these really big gyms that are like super reputable. And they're like, hey, Steve, like, what are you thinking of doing? And I'm like, what are you asking me for? Like, BS, like, I'm still a white belt real quick. Like, I just happen to be the guy that runs the program, So, interestingly enough, like, I didn't pay a lot of attention to it because I didn't want to know. I think it was going to ruin it for me, because I can be a bit of a sensitive dude, and like, if I had really known what people were probably saying, I'd probably be a heck of a lot more affected by it. So I kind of just put my head down and said, okay, people are going to say stuff. They're not going to take you seriously until it's time to take you seriously. So make sure align yourself with a good instructor and just keep plowing away, and what will happen will happen. Because I think the programming will speak for itself when it does happen. I think we're just trying to give like good vibes and a good community to people that want to be a part of grappling, not just submission wrestling, not just jiu-jitsu, not just sambo or like whatever. Yeah. We're just trying to build like grappling communities, and what comes out of that comes out of that. I don't know. I think the more success that we get because we're an affiliated karate gym, that people will probably throw more shade at us.
I just think it's funny though, in a way, because it seems like you're on the right path in the sense that, like, isn't that what the UFC and modern MMA has taught us, is that integrated sort of martial arts approaches is kind of the way of the future, right? Like, instead of continuing to stay in just your own sort of isolated bubble of whatever it is. I mean, the same thing goes for jiu-jitsu, to be willing to adopt wrestling or striking. I just find it interesting that in this day and age, people would criticize that when it seems like a progressive, smart decision.
Well, I think a lot of people right now are scared because things are very uncertain.
Right.
Right. I started a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu club, or not even club, a program based on wanting to give my people more, and probably selfishly to give myself an outlet without having to travel so much.
Right.
Right. But now it's kind of become, well, there's only one game in town because of what's happening with COVID. So now you're starting to get people that are starting to come out, and that's been fun to watch, while at the same time, like, ensuring that people are being safe and so on and so forth.
Yeah, of course.
But it's been like, it comes, more money, more problems.
Right.
You
say that to me all the time.
Same old adage. And
yeah.
I'm not making more money, but it's just like the second that you get more attention, the second somebody is wanting to, pee on your parade a little bit. As soon as you start messing with somebody's money, then there's an issue. Like, it doesn't matter what ends up happening. Like, everyone's like, oh yeah, go train at so-and-so's gym, and we don't care what you do, and bring things back to the, but that's fine if two people are doing it. Next thing,
if there's 20, it's a problem.
Yeah. Next thing you got 20 people doing it, and they're all going to the same spot. Like, now all of a sudden it's like, well, who's, and one of the things that I have found the biggest issue, especially lately, is that academy owners are calling bylaw on academy owners.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's been crazy.
Now we're going back to the same garbage that happened when we couldn't compete. And I'm saying we, like, I'm a part of this community. Like, I've been a part of it for forever. But, like, do you remember when we couldn't do BJJ tournaments in Ontario?
Right. It was illegal because there was some kind of political interest or something, or division there, right?
Because it had something to do with affiliations of organizations. And then, other organizations would find out other organizations were running tournaments on a weekend, and they would call bylaw. Next thing you know, it's getting shut down last minute.
Yeah.
And now we're going all the way back to what it was in the 90s, where you had to go all the way to Quebec to do anything, or you got to go up to Alberta to do anything, because people in Ontario just can't cut a pie.
Yeah.
And that's what's frustrating, because I'm seeing this happening right now, and it's just like, guys, if you're not careful, this is going to be like karate in the 90s all over again. And we're right back to square one. And we are literally the biggest province in Canada. We have the most amount of combative talent in a lot of countries that produced combative athletes. And we've got certain individuals jockeying for position, calling bylaw on individuals, trying to stop people from making money because they feel like they might need to make more. I really hope it doesn't come to that point, but if it does, we're just taking huge, major steps back in combatives, and that's not going to help anybody long term. So as frustrating as it is, like, you see that a lot, and hopefully COVID doesn't make that happen, but you're already starting to see that people are calling bylaw on each other over nonsensical stuff.
Yeah.
And if even if it's just a scare tactic, it's just to shake the tree, right?
Yeah.
And who's that helping? Who's that serving? We've got places that are closing all the time, 2 or 3 a month lately. And now everybody's talking about a second wave, and you have all of these issues that are mounting on top of each other. If people aren't careful, they're going to play themselves out, right? Like you can't have it both ways. So like we either agree that we're going to help each other out in this situation and everyone's going to play nice, or we're going to take to the mattresses. But if we do that, all that blood is just going to end up spilt in vain for no reason.
Look, man, I just want to end maybe just with your thoughts on, I mean, where do you, like, in terms of your future plans, and how do you see this playing out? Like, how do we get out of this, and when does this end, and what do you sort of predict for the future of BJJ and martial arts in the next couple of years?
Well, I think it's going to come back around. I do think that right now we are in probably the lowest point that you can get because you've got the biggest sports industry in the world that's only able to hold events without a crowd. And it has to happen on an island in Abu Dhabi or in Vegas where they can control things. So if you're looking at that sport as being the pinnacle and they have that many restrictions, it's going to get worse for us. The first thing that's going to happen is that they're going to have to come with a vaccine that's going to make it easier for us to run recreational programs and then work our way back up. Right now, I think we're doing a great job of trying to keep social circles and partnerships within households together. I think that's the key to maintaining a baseline of training. So if there's something that I can say to everybody right now who might be listening to this, if you have a club that's allowing you guys to have some sort of framework to train in a drilling sense, where you can work with a partner or in a social bubble, be honorable and respect that to its highest degree, because this is probably the one and only leniency you're going to get in the next 6 months minimum. And if jiu-jitsu is important to you, if training and partner training is important to you, then you need to honor that like you honor your relationship with your spouse or your partner or your employer or whatever. Is keep that at the forefront of your decision making, because that will go away so fast, like so many of them are. And I would say in about 6 months, we'll probably get back to a gradual rollout of things. But if your gym can stay safe and can continue the protocols that they're putting in place in order for you to have a place, they're already on the crest of the wave. So they'll be the people that'll come out on top while the rest of the province is unrolling into these things recreationally and communally, like with renting of halls again and weddings again and funerals again and so on and so forth. Gyms will slowly start to go down that road. But if you're involved in a gym that's already has those protocols put in place, like just honor that, because that's the last straw. That will be the last piece of the puzzle that will give people an opportunity to say, well, it's working for this industry. Why can't we do it for everything else? But right now, literally, the small business owner who runs a brick and mortar gym is relying on their clientele to play it safe and by the rules, so you can still do what you need to do during the week for your mental health and wellness, as well as help that individual pay their bills and give back to their community. So if you're a patron and you're part of that clientele, do your part, keep your contact tracing up, keep your distance, do what you need to do to be a part of the solution to this, because it won't take long for things to just go away completely and go back to where it was. And I don't want to say that in like a negative sense where people are going to think that, the world is imploding, and it's not. I'm just saying that, we talk about how essential BJJ is to, our livelihood or our mental health and wellness and who we are as people. So it's time to put up or shut up.
Wise words to live by there, Steve. Look, man,
Right.
I really appreciate you doing this. I do. You've been a great guy to train with. I really do admire your mentality on the mats. You've always got a a great attitude towards learning. I think you're doing awesome things at your gym there. I think that program is amazing. I do feel like it's a special situation there. You've got a great coach, a great group of people. So I really hope to continue to see that grow, and I definitely will be making my way out there to train with you guys. So
no, you know what? Honestly, dude, this is great. Like, I love this podcast is fantastic. I think it's got a lot of growth. I think it's got a lot of opportunity to reach people.
Thanks,
obviously, people in this COVID time have really been gravitating towards it, and myself included. Like, I've learned a lot about like different players. I just consider it an honor to be amongst like the first couple episodes that you've done, because
yeah, man, of
you've
course.
got some heavy hitters in there, dude. And
I want to try to get a good sort of mix of people on.
Yeah, the B squad. I hear you.
No, it's not the B squad. It's not the B squad. But yeah, I am definitely putting you after the Lachlan Giles episode. So
absolutely, great. Yeah,
gonna bury the lead on that one.
Absolutely.
No, look, how can people find you online, the gym, all that kind of stuff?
If you want to follow the gym, the best way to get a hold of us is at Ferraro Karate and Martial Arts, or hashtag FKMA. That's always the best way to get a hold of us. Myself, Stephen Ferraro on social media platforms, but I take care of all the dojo stuff, and I use that kind of more or less as my output. So at Ferraro Karate and Martial Arts, check us out, 121 Wyndham Street, downtown Guelph. Just basically reach out to us, let us know what you're thinking of doing. Partners are always encouraged so that we can ensure that you end up with a social circle that's something that you can control. Because we already have our predetermined sections. But if you've got yourself and a partner that you're thinking that would really benefit from learning some great No Gi stuff, come on out.
All right, man. I recommend it. It's great. Vinny is an unbelievable coach. I look forward to choking you soon. Thanks again for doing this, man. You're awesome. I really hope that the gym does okay. I don't want to see anybody else go into financial disaster. I've seen too much of that already. So all the best, man. Thanks for doing this, and I will definitely see you soon.
Have a good night, buddy.
All right, you too, man.
Cheers.
See ya. Bye.